Hi, I'm Yasmin, a wife and a proud new mom with a background in perinatal nursing. Welcome to Birth Unboxed, where we talk about all things birth, whether it's unassisted free birth, home birth with a midwife, or in a hospital. I believe every woman deserves the right to choose how and where she gives birth. I created this podcast to raise awareness so women can make informed choices and feel empowered in their births. By sharing stories and learning from one another, we can reclaim our power and become the ultimate authority in our own birthing experiences. Sisterhood is powerful, and I am so glad you're here. Let's get started. Hi, Shandy. Thank you for joining me today on the Birth Unboxed podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So you are joining us today from Texas, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Amazing. How's the weather over there today?
It was raining this morning and now it's just a little bit overcast. But
Not too cold
it's
though?
not cold, no. It was last week, but today it's not.
Yeah,
So that's
awesome. Oh, I'm glad because this week for us it's been very, very cold. But
nice.
we won't even talk weather because I know it's going to be Celsius and Fahrenheit and then we're going to get confused. But it's been cold, very cold. So, why don't you give a little introduction about yourself and how many children you have, and then get into your story. And you can start off at the very beginning when you first became pregnant and your journey through all of your pregnancies and how your birth experiences have changed and morphed over the years and where you are at today.
Okay, perfect. So, my name is Shandy. I'm originally from Southern California. My husband is from Mexico. We met serving as missionaries for our church in Mexico. And shortly, we got married in California and then moved to Utah, and we lived there for almost 6 years, I think. And all of
Mm,
our three kids were born there. And then we moved to Texas about 2 years ago. So,
okay.
um, with my first pregnancy, um, my oldest daughter, she's now 7. I didn't know anything about anything, and I just did what I don't know what everyone else is doing,
What
right? And
everyone else is doing. Yeah.
yeah, I like my cousins who were having babies at the same time and friends who were having the same time. Like everyone was having, a medical hospital birth with an epidural, and everyone was being induced too, um, and all that. So that's just what I just assumed would happen, and I didn't really
Mhm.
think about
Yeah.
anything other than I don't know.
Yeah, because why
And
would
so
you, right? If it's
yeah,
like what
exactly.
everyone's doing, you're just like,
Yeah,
well, unless you start hearing something different, you don't really question it.
right, right.
Yeah.
Actually, my sister, her first was an induction, and then she had three natural hospital births.
Oh, okay.
But it was just something we never really talked about that much, and
Mm-hmm.
so I never
Yeah.
really asked her questions about it, like why. I actually thought she was crazy for not
Yeah.
getting an epidural, like
Yeah.
most people think,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
anyway, so I just was just going with the flow and had,
Mm-hmm.
standard OB appointments and all the typical testing and all that. And so my sister actually, she was pregnant at the same time as me. And she had her baby about 3 weeks before me. So my mom
Mm-hmm.
was in South Carolina with her for her birth. And then was planning on coming to Utah after for my birth, and I really wanted my mom to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And so she came like a few days before my due date and stayed for, after she'd been there for about a week, I was like so discouraged that my baby hadn't come yet. And my mom was going to have to leave the following week. I can't remember which day, but she was going to have to leave to go back to work. And so I was like, I need this baby to come while my mom is still here. Like the reason she's here is to support me postpartum, because my husband didn't have great paternity leave at work and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. And so,
Totally.
um, yeah, so I wanted my mom to be there, for at least a few days after the baby was born. And
Mm-hmm.
so I elected to have an induction, and my OB was actually out of town. And so I had to convince, like, I had thought my water broke because I was just peeing. But you know how like babies kind of
Yeah.
sit on the bladder, so it was like
Yeah.
pee released, and
Hmm.
then she moved, and then more pee came. So I was like, maybe
Yeah.
that's my water. So
Yeah.
like we
You
went
start
in to
reading into
check.
everything. Very
Yes,
hopeful.
we went in to check, and they're like, no, your water's not broken, but if you want to come in to be induced this weekend, you're welcome to. So Friday morning, I was like, I'm going in to be induced, with the doctor that was on call who I'd never seen before that one appointment.
Mm.
And anyway, um, so it was just a really slow process. My body was not ready. My baby was not ready. And I was GBS positive as well. And so I was on antibiotics the whole time. So Friday morning I went in. I probably got the epidural that evening sometime. Um, and then all day Saturday I was laboring in bed, and she wasn't born until Sunday morning at 3 a.m. And it was, um, maybe, well, I was pushing for about an hour and a half, I believe. So about,
Wow, that's really long for hospital induction.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was really long. But they did, I'm trying to remember what time. It was probably like maybe a half an hour before I started pushing that the nurse was like, oh, the doctor said if you don't progress soon, then we're gonna have to take you back for a C-section. And like, that was almost what I needed, I
Mm.
guess, for my body to be like, that's not happening. This baby
Yeah.
has to come out. And so that's when, she was
Things
finally
really
born.
progressed.
So yeah,
Hmm.
so I'm really grateful that I didn't end up in a C-section. Still not my favorite
Yeah.
experience. It was a really long labor. I didn't eat that whole time. I, didn't move that whole time. I was in bed the whole time. Recovery wasn't that fantastic. Anyway, um, and probably as a result of all the Pitocin and the epidural and everything else that, you know, goes on in the hospital, I had a hard time with breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And I had one nurse that was really helpful, but after her shift, I didn't feel that comfortable with my next nurse, and I was just at the point where I was like, I just need to get out of this hospital. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go home.
Yeah. You don't
So in
really
the
get
last,
any rest.
yeah, no,
Not that you
absolutely
get
not.
rest with a newborn, but it's different.
It is different in your own bed.
Yeah.
Um, so when the lactation consultant finally came around and was like, "Hey, do you need any help?" I was like, "No, I don't. Like, I just want to go home. Leave me alone." And like, I just wasn't getting discharged. And anyway, and so after that, I just went home and was like, "I'll just figure it out." And so we were kind of combo feeding. Like, I would offer the breast, and when she wouldn't take it, I would just offer her, some
Mm.
of the
Hmm.
Similac that I got sent home with, and
Yeah.
all that. And so we tried, I ended up getting nipple shields and trying that, and that worked
Hmm.
for a couple of months. And then I started to offer her just the breast, and she would take it, and then sometimes she wouldn't, and she'd prefer the nipple shield, sometimes she'd
Mm.
prefer the breast. And so it was just like a lot of like back and forth,
Yeah.
and until I just had quit. And um anyway, so after that experience with my son, I was like very determined to have a better birth experience, first of all, but also to have a successful breastfeeding journey.
A better postpartum as well.
Yes.
Yeah, how was that postpartum like having had an induction and not having waited for your body to go in spontaneous labor? Sometimes there's a bit of a disconnect between like you're now a mom, but your body was like forced into labor, so it's almost like it didn't have time to like physically and mentally truly adjust to that. So
Oh,
there can be a little bit of
absolutely.
a disconnect. Like it's already hard when you go into spontaneous labor, just like having your very first baby, it's so overwhelming. Do you find that there, like coming home with a baby, was it like, oh my God, I have a baby? Like, how was that initial
Yeah,
postpartum?
I definitely do think that there was a lot of disconnect there where I just felt like it's like kind of an out of body experience, where you're just
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know who
Mm-hmm.
I am or
Yeah.
where I am or what I'm
Yeah.
doing. And it did feel like that for a while, especially since at the time we were living in this really small one bedroom apartment, and it was really poorly lit. And it was just me and the baby in this small apartment while my
Yeah.
husband worked long hours, and we
Mm,
didn't really have a lot
it's
of
tough.
friends or family
Yeah.
close by. And so it was just me. And I
Yeah,
was actually
yeah.
thinking about this earlier today. I was like, I don't know if I had postpartum depression with her or not. Um, I never got diagnosed with it or anything, and I don't feel like I ever had like, like those baby blues feelings where like I didn't want to hold her or those types of things. Where I was like angry with her. I never had that, but I just like it was just so dark and dreary,
Yeah,
and we
yeah,
like
no.
struggled so hard with breastfeeding.
Sure.
I'm like, I might have had postpartum depression, but
Yeah, it's so common, right? Like just feeling like
right,
that. And even if it's not like a full-on postpartum depression, but just feeling the blues for a long time. And
yeah,
when you don't have community and a lot of support, it can feel so overwhelming because you're now responsible for this baby 24/7,
hmm
and that's the priority, and it can definitely feel a little strange. So I think it's hard for every mom, regardless how they birthed or if they went in spontaneous labor or not. But I think, well, I'm wondering, that's why I'm asking if it does feel even harder having had an induction for your first versus going to spontaneous labor, if that could be like you won't be able to tell because like that's just your first experience. So for your
right.
second, you were already a mom, right? So that wouldn't be the same. But I do wonder if that really makes an impact.
Yeah,
So.
I bet it does for sure. So yeah, so with my son, I toyed with the idea of a home birth, um, but I just wasn't sure, and I didn't really the home that we lived in at the time, I don't know, I just didn't like see myself birthing there. And so I was like, maybe not. We'll just do it at the hospital. But the main reason why I didn't want to birth at the hospital is because it was 2020 and I didn't want to deal with any of like the COVID restrictions that the hospital had. And I just didn't want to deal with it. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'll birth at home. But I just didn't really fully follow that line of thinking. And I just stuck to the hospital. And
Mm-hmm.
I ended up having the same OB as I did with my daughter after I changed after the first trimester. So I ended up with the same OB, and I remember like there, like, because at that point I knew more, and so it was just different. And I remember thinking like I really liked him with my first baby. Why do I really not like him this time? And I just
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
feeling like my prenatal appointments were so pointless. And like all we did was talk about like number of COVID cases at the hospital and like the weather and like when are we going to talk about like me and my
Yeah,
pregnancy?
yeah.
And because it was 2020, I couldn't bring my daughter to my appointments with me. I had to come alone. And so I had to wait until my husband got home from work to go. So I always scheduled them at the end of the day. And they were always calling me to see if I wanted to come in earlier. And I'm like, I can't because I
Uh,
can't bring my daughter. And so
and how old was your daughter at this point?
she was 3 when he was born. So
Okay, okay.
Um, anyway, so I just always felt like they were rushing me in and out of there, and just like it's like, okay, we're like we checked the heartbeat and your blood pressure and we're done. And so I just was like, this is dumb. Anyway, so with my son, my water broke 10 days early. And so I what I think happened looking back, we were swimming that day and my husband's like, "Oh, can you swim like straight across the bottom of the pool?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so I try it and forgot that I had this huge belly and I think I like popped the water bag when I
Oh,
like
that's funny.
hit the bottom of the pool. Anyway, so it was just like slowly leaking. After I was done swimming, I was like, this is weird. And we just went home and got things ready and sent my daughter with a friend to watch her while we went to the hospital that evening. We got there around 6 p.m. And they admitted me and all that. And I wasn't having any contractions yet. I just had broken
Mm-hmm.
waters. And so they're like, oh,
Okay.
based on the time that your water broke, we're gonna have to start you on Pitocin at by midnight if contractions don't pick up, because if your waters are ruptured for too long, then your baby will die and this and that. And they gave me that whole talk and like, so I did everything that I knew to do. to get contractions going. I was walking
Mm-hmm.
around and doing some squats and lunges and doing everything I could. And they were like, oh, I don't think that they had, at least at this hospital, I don't think they had, what is it called? Wireless electronic fetal
Oh,
monitoring.
yeah, yeah.
And so they're like, we have to come in and you have to sit, like lay down and we have to monitor for 20 minutes or every 20 minutes or something like that. So we were doing that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I did feel like the contractions were picking up, like around 10 p.m., 11 p.m. I was like, okay, things are starting to pick up. Like, this is good. I won't have to get on Pitocin anymore. And I could just have this baby naturally. And I also wasn't sure if I wanted an epidural or not. I was scared. I was scared of what it would feel like, especially
Mm-hmm.
knowing what a Pitocin contraction feels like. I was like, that is really
So
awful.
were you on Pitocin already at this point?
No, so
No.
I wasn't yet. It wasn't yet, no, but I
Yeah, okay.
wasn't sure if I would end up on it and if I would want an
Right.
epidural, if I was
Right.
or wasn't.
Okay.
Was kind of playing things by ear. And so
Mm-hmm.
um midnight rolled around and I was ready for her to be like, "Oh, we noticed your contractions have increased," or "How are you feeling?" or nothing. She was just like, "We're starting you on Pitocin now." And I was like, what? Like I just was so defeated and like
Uh,
I just didn't have the wherewithal to like push back and be like, wait, I don't, can we wait? I really
yeah,
wanted to ask if I could
yeah.
wait. And again, I wasn't able to have anyone in the room with me besides my
Uh,
husband. And so I wasn't able
yeah.
to hire a doula or to have somebody,
Right.
help me with
Yeah.
those kinds of things. And so we started Pitocin at midnight and they came and asked me 3 different times over the next couple of hours if I wanted an epidural or not. And I finally caved after the third time and was like, okay, give me the epidural. And I was so disappointed in myself and
Hmm.
which is it's kind of silly because it's not like it's necessarily my fault. Anyway,
Totally. Yeah.
I just was falling into the same cascade of interventions. And so
Yeah.
but so he was born the next morning at 8 a.m. and my push time was a
Okay.
lot shorter than the first. Um, oh, actually, I forgot about this. I ended up with an episiotomy with him
Oh.
because while I was pushing, she's like, "Oh, your scar tissue from the last time you tore, like it's just not stretching. Yeah, like I'm gonna have to cut you.
Uh,
Is that okay?" And I like tried to push, and she's like stretching my perineum while I'm
yeah.
pushing, and I'm obviously on my back and um in Mick Roberts' position, and so
Hmm.
um so she gave me an episiotomy, and I'm I'm almost positive I would bet money that she gave me a husband stitch when she stitched me up because
Uh,
it was very painful. Intercourse was very painful after the fact that
do
I
you
did not
want to
experience
describe
that
what
with
that
my
is
birth.
for the listeners?
Yeah, so a husband stitch is just when like you have a tear or an episiotomy and they stitch you up, they give you like an extra stitch or two to make your vaginal opening smaller. And
Mm-hmm.
they call it that because it's, more pleasurable for the husband.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so recovery with him for the most part was fine. Um, except for once we started having intercourse again, it was really painful, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
understand
Yeah.
why because I didn't have that issue with my first.
Right.
Um,
Hmm.
and eventually it was fine. I don't know, maybe I stretched back
Yeah.
out or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I wasn't super happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was the same deal leaving the hospital. Like I just wanted to get out of there, and they didn't understand that. Like I I didn't want to be. I just wanted to go home anyway.
Totally. Yeah.
Um, but the difference was our breastfeeding journey was way better. We did
Mm.
struggle in the first couple weeks. I think that's pretty just
Yeah.
typical.
Yeah.
But we made it all the way until 12 months, which was my goal, and so
Amazing.
I was
Yeah.
really happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was good. And then anyway, after two hospital births, I for sure was done with the hospital and was able to convince my husband, who was a little bit weary of home birth.
Home birth.
And a lot
Yeah.
of his weariness was just, cultural.
Yeah.
He comes
Yeah.
from a culture that's very like doctor dependent and just like
Mm-hmm.
we just trust doctors and we do what they
Totally.
say. And
Mm-hmm.
so like not having
Yeah.
a doctor present was a little bit of a
Yeah. Yeah.
hard thing for him to get through.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we agreed that it was best and that's what we planned for. And like my whole pregnancy was just so different just because one of my big goals for that birth was to like really feel have like a sacred experience because I'd heard that people can like feel the presence of heaven, at the time of their child's birth and just how like it's like heaven and earth meeting and and
Mm-hmm.
like I don't remember really feeling that with my first two and it was
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
it was very disconnected from it, not being able to
Totally.
feel what was happening or having really any control over my own body. And I think those are obviously very big contributing factors to that. But like I didn't really also prepare for that. And so that was a big focus of my preparation for my home birth was preparing myself spiritually for that experience. And so I just spent a lot of time in scripture and prayer and you know, found some scriptures and quotes and things that would help me affirmation wise and had those up on my bedroom wall. And I found a really great doula um, who helped me so much during pregnancy and as well as during birth. And I had my best friend Taylor, who you've had on your podcast. She was
Yeah.
pregnant, planning a home birth at the same time, and so having like that support too of like, okay, someone else is doing this too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that I can like talk to about it and stuff and who gets it because a lot of people don't get home
Yeah.
birth
Yeah.
or why you would even want to do
Totally.
that.
Yeah.
And so
It's very
so
special
yeah,
having a friend pregnant with you at the same
yes,
time and getting to really talk it through. Because even if it's a friend that has already had a baby, but like once you're going through it again, it's just at the same time, it's really nice connecting with women
yeah, yep,
who are in the
it is
same
for
stage.
sure,
Yeah.
for sure. And we had the same midwife too, and she was a little quirky, so we were able to be like, she said this weird thing to me. She's like, oh, she said that to me too, or did she say this
That's
anyway? So
funny.
um, that was fun. But anyway, so um, yeah, my pregnancy just I always had really easy pregnancies. Like I didn't have anything weird.
Yeah.
I never had preeclampsia or gestational diabetes or anything like that. I was a lot more
Nothing that would
nauseous
have put
with
you
my
high
third.
risk.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I was a lot more nauseous with my third than with my like for longer. Um,
Okay.
like not daily, but like if we were really in like a really windy car ride or something that would make me sick or stuff like that or like different smells.
Hmm.
But other than that, super easy pregnancy. And anyway,
For
so
your
yeah,
third pregnancy, how
mhm.
old was your second?
He was 2 months shy of two when
Okay.
she was born.
Okay.
So yeah, a little bit shorter of a gap between two and
Hmm.
three than one and two.
And did
Um,
you feel just in terms of like the exhaustion you get with pregnancy, just having the two little toddlers around, was it much harder the third time round?
that's a good question. 1 to 2 was really hard. Um,
Yeah.
2 to 3 was also hard. I don't know. I feel like I had more support that
Yeah.
time around, and so I
Okay,
didn't
that
feel
makes
as
a difference.
exhausted.
Yeah. And
Um,
but they probably played together too, so that probably
yeah,
helped a
yeah, for
little. Yeah.
sure, for sure. Because
Yeah.
I do remember, like with my second pregnancy, I feel like I spent a lot of time resting for like just being
Mm-hmm.
tired,
Yeah.
and I don't remember that a lot with my third. Maybe that was just because I couldn't.
Yeah, yeah.
Two
You
kids
just forgot about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a good question though. I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, so so my birthday's August 5th. I was turning 30 and my due date was August 12th. And I
Okay.
kind of had it, I felt like she was going to come early. And so I was like, just don't come on or before my birthday. Like, don't ruin my birthday. I want to enjoy my birthday and then you can come.
Yeah,
So
I came the
the,
day before my mom's birthday.
so you did, you ruined your mom's birthday.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, so the day of my birthday, I was out with with Taylor, with our kids, and we went to lunch into uh, like a play area, and that whole day I felt like little flutters, and I'm like, stop messing with me. And I went to bed that night like I'm gonna have my baby tomorrow. Like I knew she was gonna be the
Yeah.
next day. And so I woke up the next morning at like 4 a.m. to go to the bathroom. And when I laid back down, like I was feeling contractions. And so I was like too excited to fall back asleep. And I like woke up my husband and was like, "Hey, wake up. We're having a baby today." And there was still a ton of things we didn't have ready yet. Like we needed a tarp to go under the birth pool,
Mm.
and we needed there's different things. Like I wanted to get like a thermometer for the water so we knew what temperature it was and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And like I had placed an Amazon order the night before for a bunch of different things, and um none of it was ready on time. So I have like this camo tarp that we had out in the shed underneath my
Aw.
birth pool because that's all we
Made
had.
it
And
work.
anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So, so yeah, so I just got up and started doing laundry and like taking a shower and just,
Yeah.
being antsy, waiting for things to really start. And I set my midwife a contraction timer and let her know like, hey, this is where I'm at. Um, and she's like, okay, just let me know how things progress. And shortly after that, I got a message from her, was like, hey, I have this other mom. She's in labor too. And she was having birth at her birthing center. And she was like, do you want me to come over and break your water or like give you a tincture to speed things along? So like essentially so she could go back to the birthing center and be with this other mom and just
Mm-hmm.
like get me out of the way, you know? And I was like, what the heck? Like, no, I don't want any of
Yeah.
this. Like, I didn't want any
Yeah.
interventions at all. And so I was really frustrated by that. And like, I declined. And,
Mm-hmm.
I talked to my doula about it. And, she was really supportive of me. And that was really helpful to like give me the courage to tell her, no, I don't want
Yeah.
that. And so,
Mm-hmm.
after I declined, I essentially just forgot about my midwife entirely. And, um, Taylor came over and my doula Kirsten came over and we just hung out while I labored in my
Mm.
bedroom, and they were both super supportive and wonderful. Like the way that they just anticipated my needs was so incredible, and I
Yeah.
just am so grateful to them.
It's
Um,
so different, right? Having like I guess doula and then just an friend who has had babies and who has gone through labor
mhm,
naturally supporting you because they really know. Like Taylor and I were talking about this, just like our husbands can be such amazing support, and like I had my
mhm,
mom who was also amazing support, but she had two C-sections, so she never got to really experience labor like physiologically. So just having someone that understands that to support you, I find that it can like make a huge, huge, huge difference. So I'm glad you were able to have two amazing women supporting you. Yeah.
yeah, it made such a difference for sure. Um, And I can't remember exactly what time they both arrived. So maybe like 8 and 9 or so. Um, and so we just were, in my bedroom. I was like in and out of the birth pool a couple of times. Um, and then when things started to get pretty intense, I moved into the birth pool hopefully to stay. And I was there for a while. And my doula she had I think she was 6 months old. So she had to leave and nurse a couple of times. And one of the times that she
Mm,
left, it was starting to get really intense. And I started to like, have doubts and be like, I don't know if I can, how much
yeah.
longer I can do this. And um, so I was just kind of getting into my head a little bit while she was gone. And then when
Mm-hmm.
she came back, I let her know how I was feeling. And I don't remember exactly, I'm like going to get teary eyed. I don't remember exactly what she said to
Mm-hmm.
me. But whatever it was what I needed. And it gave me the like reassurance I needed to be like, okay, I can do this. And, I said
Yeah.
a prayer and, that I would have the strength to endure the rest of birth. And she offered, she's like, do you want to like switch positions or do you want to get out of the pool? And I was like, I think I want to get out. And so at the time I was like leaning over the edge of the pool on my knees, and I like rolled over onto my bum to stand up and get out of the pool. Like a good strong contraction hit, and I was like stuck there. So I'm leaning on the edge of the pool with my legs out, and just like it hurt so bad, and it was just really intense. Like, you've
Yeah.
had natural birth, so
Well, I did end up in a C-section after laboring
uh,
at home for 24 hours, but I suffered a lot before the C-section, so
yeah,
I
yeah, so
can resonate.
and anyway, so I didn't realize I was in transition, but I was in transition, and Taylor called my husband in, and the kids came in too, and so he was behind me with the kids, and like just like feeling his touch was like so comforting and
Oh,
like so
yeah.
relaxing. And then I had Kirsten in front of me, and she was giving me some counter pressure on my knees, which was also super amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I I remember saying like it burns because I could feel the ring of fire, and she's like,
Yeah.
"Yep, it does. It burns." And I think I think I pushed twice, and her head emerged, and then there was a kind of a pause between contractions, where I could just kind of catch my breath and slow things down, and then the rest of her body slid out, and I pulled her out of the water,
Wow.
and I just gave like a long prayer of gratitude after that, and it
Yeah.
was it was exactly what I hoped for,
Oh,
and
it's beautiful.
it was like the perfect birth experience for me, and
Yeah.
I immediately wanted to do it again. I loved it
Yeah.
so much. And my sister was like,
Oh.
"You're crazy." And I'm like, "No, really, it was that good."
Oh, I
And so
love
yeah,
it. So
so
your midwife never showed up.
yeah, well, see, after my daughter was born, Taylor was like, "Oh, I just let our midwife know that she was born," and I was like, "Oh, thank you." We forgot about her. She did come. So the other mom ended up giving birth within like 10 minutes of me.
Oh, okay.
And so she finished up with her, and then she came over, I think like 2 hours after birth, and
Okay.
like checked to make sure everything was
Mm-hmm.
okay, and did
Mm-hmm.
like a newborn scan,
Did
weighed her and
assessment,
all
yeah.
that, and cut her cord. And that was one thing that was kind of cool, was it was I didn't have to worry about anyone trying to cut the cord or anything, because
Yeah,
she wasn't
yeah.
there to do it. So
Yeah,
definitely had a
totally.
white flimsy cord when, we
Nice.
finally cut it. And so
Yeah.
but yeah, so
Sounds very
we got out of the pool
peaceful.
after placenta was born, and laid in bed and waited for my midwife to come and my mom to come. And um that recovery was really great, because I had my mom there for a week, and then when she went home,
Mm.
my sister came, or my mom was there for 2 weeks. And then when she
Mm-hmm.
left, my sister came for a week too. So
Oh,
I had
nice.
a lot of support for a while,
Yeah.
and it made it so much easier of
Oh,
a
totally.
transition. So that was really, really nice.
So
And so
important.
yeah. Now I
Yeah.
live near family here in Texas. I'm
Oh,
hoping with future pregnancies I'll have that
yeah.
same support postpartum.
Oh,
So
it's so good. Yeah, it makes such a difference having close support, someone who's
yeah,
there, like, can really come whenever you need. For that home birth, did you end up having any tears?
I did. I had a really small, minor internal tear, and I didn't need. I would have declined stitches anyway,
Mm,
but I didn't need
right.
anything. So yeah,
Nice. Yeah. So the scar tissue was
was
fine.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That it sounds beautiful. Just I love how you're able to just tap in to your own intuition and
Mhm.
your faith and to trust God and just be calm even though it was obviously really hard and really painful and at the times it really helped having your doula there supporting
Yep.
you and praying with you. But it was like you were just trusting yourself and you didn't even remember your midwife because so often we just outsource our power in times of birth and we feel like unless my midwife or my OB's here I can't do this.
Right.
And the truth is, no, you can. We have been doing this forever. Sometimes it's nice to have them there. Sometimes it's needed,
Mhm.
but a lot of the time, it's not. A lot of the time, you'd be fine, right? So, just having women trust themselves, and even if they choose a midwife, choose an OB, or choose a hospital birth, that they're going in there knowing that like my body can do this, and I will get what I feel that I need, but I don't need everything they're offering. I can pick and choose, and
Yeah.
and just I can go in there and feeling like I have some authority and I have some power. It's my body, my baby, and
Yeah,
not
for
just
sure.
being like, you tell me, you do whatever you want, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna lie here. And
Right.
then you don't get to have that transformative spiritual experience that you did. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm sure some people somehow have figured out a way to still have that with all the interventions and not being in control of anything. But I think it's much easier to experience that, heaven and earth transformative birth when
Yep.
you are in control. I mean, it's not control, when you're surrendering to that, but that you are still the authority and choosing what you can choose in that process, right?
Yeah, that was exactly it. Well, it wasn't me. It was God. Like I was at total peace with my midwife not being there, and it wasn't because I was like, "Oh, I know everything. I'll be fine." Like I trusted
Mm-hmm.
that I would be protected and that the Lord would comfort me, and he provided that, and he gave me, earthly and heavenly angels that supported me through that entire birth, and I never once felt like scared. I mean, like I said, I did have that moment of like, I don't know if I can continue, like, I
Of
don't know if I
course,
can still do
yeah.
this, but I wasn't scared about like anything bad happening. I was never worried about like, what if I hemorrhage? I was never worried about like, what if she's not breathing?
Mm-hmm.
I had total
Yeah.
peace, and like, I knew that
Yeah.
if there was going to be a problem, I trusted that the Lord would warn me and be like, hey, something's wrong. You need to like change your plan or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
I have full faith that that would have happened, but um I was blessed to have a really uncomplicated, perfect
Yeah, it's
birth. And
beautiful. Yeah. That's beautiful. And that is, most of the time. And
hmm
also, there are obviously situations where things can happen very quickly, but most of the time, you notice when something is off,
yeah,
when you are trusting your body and you are in tune with that and you are paying attention to everything going on, you notice if something feels off, and it's just about trusting yourself and be like, well, I need a midwife here, or I should go to the hospital now, or I
yep,
need an
yep,
ambulance, right?
yep,
Yeah,
for
well,
sure.
beautiful. Well, I'm so
Thank
happy you
you.
had that, like, third
Very
birth that you
very
really
redemptive.
felt
Yeah.
redemptive, totally. And were your kids, like, how were they with that whole situation?
Yeah, they were there. My 5-year-old at the time, she was really excited. She got into the pool with me a couple of times. Like
Yeah.
the first time I got into the pool, I think she got in, and then after baby was born, before placenta was born, she got in with me. She was like asking my doula questions. She was
Mm.
really excited. My son was a little too young to really understand, what was going
Yeah, what's
on.
going on?
While I was pregnant, he really loved to look at my belly and like talk to
Yeah.
baby and stuff, or like hug my belly. And they just watched, and it
Yeah.
was it was fun. It was fun to have them there, and they
Oh,
loved holding her immediately and
oh, that's
all
awesome.
that. So yeah,
And now it's, they're growing up not thinking birth is scary and dangerous, so
yeah,
that's really
or
nice.
gross or anything. Yeah, yeah. They watch
Or
birth
gross,
videos with me all
exactly.
the time.
Yeah.
My third, she always
I
asks
love
to
it.
watch her birth video. She's like, "Mom, I want to watch me as a baby," and so we watch
Oh,
her birth video all the
it's
time. It's
awesome.
fun.
Yeah, I love it. Just normalizing it. It's such a
Yeah.
normal part of life. And I have friends from high school that to this day are traumatized after watching in biology class a video of a woman birthing, like a natural birth, because that was the first time ever they had ever seen
Yeah.
that. And it was just shocking and just like, oh my God, I am never having a baby. And to this day, they're terrified.
Mhm.
So starting them early and just showing them that this is normal, this is
It's
natural,
no.
this is
Yep.
how it's meant to be. It just they don't grow up terrified of it.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
they're not feeling like I need help. I need professionals to do everything and tell me everything, and I
Right.
don't have any power in the situation, but that's not the case.
Yep.
Yeah. Beautiful. So I'm assuming you said as soon as you gave birth, you were ready to have more. So I'm assuming there will be more babies in
I
the
certainly hope
future, more
so.
home
Yep.
births.
Yep.
Beautiful. Is there any piece of advice that you can give to future mamas, pregnant mamas who may be in a situation where they're just learning about this and they're starting to question the way obstetrics, not modern day obstetrics is, and starting to wonder like, could I potentially want a home birth, or do I want to have a hospital birth with a midwife? But wondering like, can I do this? Am I strong enough? Like, how
Mhm.
can they prepare? Like, what can you give them to help them through this journey?
I would say get really, really good at trusting God and listening to the spirit, and also listening to your intuition. And if you aren't good at those things, then it's going to be really hard when the time comes to rely on them
Mm-hmm.
because you haven't had the practice. And so definitely if you're trying to get pregnant or you are pregnant, like really, really work on that. Um, One book that really, really helped me while I was pregnant is called The Gift of Giving Life, and it's mostly just birth stories of women and like their experience with um, how God helped and influenced their birth experience. Or there's like adoption stories in there as well. There's miscarriage stories, every type of birth, hospital, cesarean, and any type of birth story. So it's for anyone,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what type of birth you're planning. But it's just really, really good to hear and stories from other women who are faithful and how, God was there for them through their birth, and it gives you hope that he'll be there for you. And so
Mm-hmm.
anyway, The Gift of Giving Life, super good book. Um but just get educated about your own anatomy and the physiology of birth, and because once you
Mm-hmm.
do, like I remember the first time I learned about like the different hormones that work
Yeah.
through birth, and I was like, this goes against everything that they do in the hospital.
Yeah,
It
pretty
doesn't make
much.
any sense. Like anything that they do to you in the
Mm.
hospital, none of it makes sense because it's the opposite of what
No.
our bodies naturally do. And so
Yeah. That's
just
why it should not be the mainstream way of birthing. It should be
right,
just in the rare situations where you
right.
truly need all of that, right? But
Exactly,
otherwise,
exactly.
that shouldn't be, it's a woman, like, shouldn't be just going into that without questioning anything. But I'm glad women are starting to question more.
Yep. Same.
So
So
this work, or I guess your experiences, have made you want to work with birth, and you are now
yes,
working as a doula, correct?
that is correct. Yeah, I knew
Amazing.
while I was preparing for my home birth, I knew that eventually I would want to get into birth work, but I was like, I'm still having babies, like now's not a good time. And around the time my daughter turned 1, I had an experience with a woman that led me to prayer and to ask God about birth work, and he gave me a very definitive, yes, this is what you need to do answer. And so, and I couldn't deny it. And so, like, hey, I'm starting now. Like, even though I'm nursing,
Mm-hmm.
and I plan on having more babies, and it's really inconvenient, I'm doing it, and it's been really, really amazing to see his hand in the whole thing, how he's led me to specific women, and the way that right now my husband and I only have one car. He has a motorcycle, and then we only have one car.
Mm-hmm.
um and, while I was still nursing, it's just always worked out so perfectly to where like not having another car hasn't been an issue. While I was nursing, I never had like an overnight or middle of the night birth, or anything like it's just all worked out
Yeah,
so
that's
perfectly, and
awesome.
his hand has been in every step of the way. So it's just really nice to
That's
have like that
awesome.
confirmation, like, yes, I'm following the right path and this is what I'm supposed to be
Yeah,
doing. And so it makes it
that
so much more worth it and
makes it feel good.
rewarding.
Yeah, that's awesome. I find that when women have these transformative, beautiful births, they fall in love with births and they want to work with birth. And it's just they just
Yep.
want to support other women. They want to be there
Yes.
and get to experience that all over again with their friends, and because you do
Yep.
become friends and sisters with the women
Oh,
you are
absolutely.
supporting,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It's beautiful.
Yep.
Do you want to share if anyone wants to connect with you? Do you want to share your Instagram?
Yep. You can follow me at Three Lights Birth. spell out the word three lights birth, and follow me and talk to me and DM me and whatever. If you just want to tell me your birth story, I'd be happy to hear it and or anything.
Perfect.
So,
I'll include it in the show notes as well.
okay, awesome.
Okay, well,
Thanks.
thank you, Shandy, so much for taking the
Thanks for
time to
having
tell us
me.
your beautiful stories. I really appreciate it. Have a beautiful day.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Birth Unboxed. If you've enjoyed today's conversation and want to hear more, please consider subscribing to the podcast so you never miss an episode and leaving a review. I'd love to hear your thoughts or even your own birth stories, so feel free to connect with me via Instagram at thebirthunboxed.podcast or through my website linked in the show notes. Until next time, friends.